Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. When you read, you begin with ABC. When you sing, you begin with Do, Re, Mi. All you Sound of Music fans watching in will be not able just to say those words along with me, but probably have burst into song and have probably got distracted from the video and are off dancing and singing your favourite musical tunes right now. But that truism, as obvious as it is right, isn't it? And so our narrative starts at the beginning, not at the beginning of everything, because God himself is without beginning and without end. God is eternal. Not just meaning that God has a life that goes on forever, but that God rules over time and space, that God is beyond time and space, and God exists outside of time and space. God is infinite and eternal. He has all of his existence at once. But time and space have a beginning. And so the Bible opens with those famous words: in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then it goes on to describe how God starts to work with a universe, a cosmos that is without shape and form, and he shapes it and forms it. Creation starts with God acting and God speaking. So God says, let there be light, and there was light. And so the account opens. God creates the universe, and then he shapes it, he forms it, he divides night from day. So the light and the darkness are divided. He divides, so he's dividing time. He divides land from sea, the waters above from the waters below. So exactly what that means, but primarily I think that's the sense that there is a division between, that there is not a merging of the planets and the atmosphere around them. There's division and order there. There's sky and land. So he forms and shapes and brings order, and then he begins to populate, he begins to fill. He forms and he fills. You might say that God subdues and fills, that God rules and fills. Hang on to that idea for a moment. Because when he has filled and populated the sky, the day sky with the sun, the night sky with the moon and the stars, when he has populated the sky teeming with birds and flying creatures, and the land with animals, and the sea with fishes and other sea creatures, he finally makes man, humanity, Adam and Eve, and he blesses them. And where he has told those creatures that he's made to be blessed, to multiply and fill the earth, he does that with humans as well. But because they are made in his image, he tells them to rule, to subdue. That just as God has formed and filled, so too that is what humans are to do. Made in God's image, representing and acting for and reflecting God, subduing and filling his creation for him, to glorify him and to worship him. And then what God does is he helps them learn how to do that. So he doesn't just send them out into all of creation just straight off. But God creates a garden, the Garden of Eden, this paradise garden, located somewhere in the Middle East, unlocatable today, but at the source of a number of rivers. The idea of God's provision and blessing flowing out from there. And he does a couple of things. He makes the man first. He places him in the garden to work there. Again, he speaks to him, he blesses him. And God tells that man that he is to look after the garden, to guard it, to protect it. Again, subduing, forming, shaping. And he is to tend to it, to till the soil, the ground, to look after it, to nurture it so that it will be filled with fruitfulness. God also starts to put boundaries, rules, form into place. So there are trees that Adam can eat from. Just as later, God's people will be given food that they can eat, clean animals, and there's food that Adam cannot eat. Specifically the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And in that context, God then says it's not good for man to be alone. Notice that God is not saying it's not right for him to be lonely. This is not about loneliness, but about aloneness. And so God says that Adam needs a helper, someone who is like him, alongside him. God brings all of the animals to Adam that he's created, gets Adam to name them. Adam is taking, again, more responsibility for that, subduing, forming and subduing and defining. But none of them are a suitable helper, suitable partner for Adam. And so God makes a helper for Adam, puts him into deep sleep, the first anesthetic, if you like. And then he takes one of Adam's ribs and forms that rib into woman, breathes life into her, just as he's breathed life into Adam, who was formed from the dust of the ground. And we're told that Adam says that she is flesh of his flesh, bone of his bone. We're told that because of this, a man will leave his parents and be joined to, will cleave to his wife, to become one flesh, a unity. And so you have the first marriage. God creates, God forms and God subdues, God makes humans in his image, and they're under his rule, but they are also to rule as well, and to form and to fill, to keep, to tend and to guard. And God rests. On the seventh day, God rested, setting a pattern there for humanity. That's something that will find its way into the laws of Israel later on. rest there. Not the idea that God needs a nap out of tiredness. And in fact, Adam and Eve will enjoy rest, enjoy their first Sabbath before they work, not after, not when they're tired. But the purpose of rest is not I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I need to sleep and I need to lose control, but it is about enjoyment. It is about finding time and space to enjoy what God has done and what God is doing, and for us as humans, therefore, to enjoy God's goodness, God's provision to us, and enjoy the fruit of our labours as well, to take it in. For God, it's about receiving the praise and the glory and the worship of his creation. And I would suggest that our rest is part of how, on that lower, smaller level, how we are honoured as well. You'll see that we're starting to see some themes here. These are the things that we talk about when we talk about biblical theology. First of all, we have begun to see who God is and what his rule and reign looks like. Secondly, we're beginning to see what it means to be God's people, God's created people, not just animals, but God's special creation. And thirdly, we're beginning to see what it means to live in the place that God has allocated to us in his creation, in his presence. So we've got God's people under God's rule and reign, God's provision and blessing in God's place and in God's presence. It'd be great to keep following on and see how the story unfolds. Just to warn you, there is mild, what I'm on about, there is significant, horrendous peril ahead. No further spoilers. Tune in next time.